Hey, all you big nerds out there. You might be wondering, do I really need an updated COVID vaccine? I'm here to say that yes, everyone can benefit from a boost in their COVID protection before the winter respiratory season. And I'm going to give you a few of my top reasons why you should roll up your sleeve for the updated COVID shot. I'm Nerdy Girl Jen. I'm a professor of population health and demography at the University of Oxford. You can also read the full post on Those Nerdy Girls Substack or on Stat News, where this article was first published. So why do you need another COVID vaccine? Maybe you've had the primary series and a booster and you think you should be done. Well, first, COVID isn't gone. We are in a much better place than we were for the past 3 winters, thanks to an accumulation of immunity from both vaccines and infections. But COVID is still routinely killing more than 1,000 Americans per week, which is just astonishing and worse than a bad flu season. And we still have flu on top of this. Second, an updated COVID shot boosts your protection against severe disease. So even for those who had the previous shots, last year's booster provided additional protection against critical illness and hospitalization. And this wasn't just at older ages, it was for younger folks as well. We know that vaccine effectiveness wanes over time, and SARS-CoV-2 also mutates over time, which is why we have an updated formula that matches current variants. The vaccines are still our best tool for keeping people out of the hospital and not dying from COVID. Third, you'll lower your chances of getting infected at all, especially in the short term, and who doesn't want that? We know that neutralizing antibodies increase considerably after COVID vaccination. This lowers but does not eliminate your risk of infection for several months. COVID can be a nasty virus for anyone, so avoiding an infection you might otherwise have gotten is win-win. Fourth, you may think you are not high risk, but it's really not obvious who is high risk for severe COVID. There is no clearly defined group that has no risk of severe COVID. Being older, especially above 65, is the strongest risk factor, but otherwise most people don't know if they are particularly vulnerable to severe COVID or not. It's a bit of a crapshoot. Lots of older people we know underestimate their risk based on age alone because they are generally healthy. This is really not a risk that you want to take. Next, vaccination may reduce the risk of long COVID and help in the recovery for some. Each COVID infection confers some additional risk for long-term consequences. And while data on vaccines and long COVID is still developing, we have some data that suggests 3 doses of vaccine were more protective than 2 doses against long COVID. And there's also suggestive evidence that vaccination can alleviate existing long COVID symptoms. Again, this is not 100% definitive yet, but a good potential benefit of the vaccine. Next, you can help protect those around you. Fewer infections means less transmission. Less transmission means fewer cases, and fewer cases really means fewer serious cases and deaths. So while COVID vaccines do not block transmission completely as we once hoped, they still do reduce the likelihood of transmission. If my vaccine protects me from an infection, even in the short term, I can't pass the virus to others. This means that my vaccine also protects other people, particularly those whose immune systems don't respond as well to vaccines. Finally, the vaccines are extremely safe. So they're amongst the most tested vaccines in the world. COVID is not safe. The chances of encountering COVID this winter are high. A decision not to get the vaccine is a decision to expose yourself to the virus with less protection than you otherwise could have. So bottom line, go get that updated COVID vaccine and get your flu shot while you're at it. Stay safe, stay well.